Buy your gold and silver from SD Bullion. Right now, new customers can get gold or silver at spot by visiting sdbullion.com/new. Hey everybody, Smart Silver Stacker here. Hope you're all doing well. I want to wish all of you a happy new year. This is probably going to be the last video that I put out in 2023, and I thought, what better time to go over some of the trends that we as stackers should be focused on as we head into the new year. Some of the trends that will be driving the prices of both gold and silver in the new year. And we'll also take a look at those prices themselves, see where the gold price could be headed, where the silver price could be headed. But first, let's start off with the Federal Reserve, because this is probably one of the most important trends going into 2024. It's what is the Fed going to do next? Because if you've been paying attention, you probably understand at this point that in these manipulated, controlled markets, the anticipation of what the Federal Reserve is going to do next with monetary policy is the primary driver of prices across markets. And we're looking at the CME FedWatch tool here. You can see that as early as January 31st, that's going to be the Fed's next FOMC meeting, markets are anticipating a 16.5% chance of a Fed rate cut. But then if we go to March, for the March FOMC meeting, you can see that those odds of rate cuts increase to greater than 85%. And this anticipation of Fed cutting, this is largely why stocks right now are finishing up the year at record all-time highs, despite the fact that we have a very weak economy. Markets are anticipating correctly that the Federal Reserve will be cutting rates. They will begin printing. One thing that we really haven't heard a lot of talk about is a return to quantitative easing. But I think that's likely in the cards as well. And if you want to talk about why, let's go on to another trend that I think we're going to witness in 2024. Now, what you're looking at here, this is a chart of the Fed's Bank Term Funding Program, the emergency credit facility that was put into place back in March when banks started to fail. And according to the most recent data, we just got some new data from December 27th. You can see that this program has once again put in a new all-time high, rising to a utilization of $135.8 billion. This facility, again, what this does is it allows distressed banks to give the Fed low-yielding U.S. Treasuries on which they have large unrealized losses. They get a loan at face value, a lot more than the bonds are actually worth in the open market. The Fed then puts these bad bonds on their balance sheet. So it's kind of like a stealth QE by another name. And this facility is now rising once again. You know, it had kind of stabilized for a period there between June and, let's say, the end of November. And then it started ticking back up again here in December. And this is a sign that the banks are not doing well. In 2023, we saw a banking crisis begin. And if you add up all the deposits of the banks that failed, it's actually worse than 2008. But this crisis is not over yet. And in 2024, this Bank Term Funding Program is set to expire in March, but it doesn't look like the banks are going to be in any shape to eliminate this facility. In fact, I think that this facility is likely to be expanded in 2024, and we may see the Fed altogether abandon their program of quantitative tightening and resume quantitative easing, buying up all of these bad bonds from these banks to avoid a massive liquidity crisis and a systemic financial collapse. I mean, to me, the odds are that as the banking system continues to suffer from illiquidity, it's much more likely that they'll return to the printing presses and bail these institutions out rather than allow the massive financial bubble that they've inflated since the great financial crisis pop and come to an end. And see, when that happens, when the Fed returns to QE, the impact on the price of gold and silver will be very significant. Let's take a look at the chart of gold here as we wrap up 2023. This is the long-term gold chart. And you can see from a technical standpoint, it's a very good chart indeed. I mean, we've got a massive cup and handle formation, which looks like gold may be about to break out of. Now, we kind of tested that. I'm going to zoom in here. Tested that a couple weeks ago when we saw a spike up to the 2150 level in gold overnight, but it got smacked down. We still have yet to see a close of the gold price above this upward line here, the top of the handle formation on that cup and handle. But I think in 2024, it is very likely that we will see that. Now, of course, nothing is guaranteed. I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you exactly the date that's going to happen or the catalyst that will drive gold higher. I mean, heck, I suppose it's possible gold could fall, but I do think that the odds are in 2024, we are going to see a break above this $2,100 level or so. We're going to see a high close above that, and then we're going to see gold rising significantly. And if you examine the pattern here, the cup and handle formation, one would expect gold to rise to a price north of $3,000 when it breaks out of this. Now, is that going to happen in 2024? Possibly, it could, maybe not, but I do think we're going to get a lot closer to that level in that year. I mean, it's possible that we could be beginning a multi-year bull market in the price of gold. It might take a little more than 1 year to get to 3,000, but I think it's safe to say that in 2024, we're probably going to see gold, in the $2,300, $2,400 level easily, and possibly higher than that. Now, let's move on to the price of silver here. Now, this is not nearly as pretty a chart as the price of gold, but in 2024, I do think it is likely that silver will stop its sort of stagnation that it has been in for some time now. I mean, we did see a big move up, during the silver squeeze a couple of years ago. We got silver knocking on $29, $30, but it has had a lot of volatility since then. And it just seems unable to break out of this range that it's in. Gold is at record all-time highs. Actually, it's going to be the first time that gold closes above $2,000 at the end of 2023, which has basically already happened because we've already wrapped up the last trading day. So first time we've gotten a close of gold above $2,000, and yet silver still languishing right now at 2377, less than half of its 2011 highs. But you can see this long-term trend line drawn from the 2011 high down to where we're at today. And I think it is very likely in 2024 that as gold breaks out, as the Fed begins printing again, silver will go along for the ride. And one thing I am forecasting for 2024 is that we will see a reduction in the gold to silver ratio, now up around 86-44 at the very high end of historical norms. Now, could this go higher before it goes lower? Sure. But I do believe that we will see a compression of the gold to silver ratio in 2024. The fact that we haven't seen that yet, I would interpret as an indication that this bull market in the precious metals is still very nascent and it has a lot of room to go. I mean, you can see the last major bull run we had in gold and silver in 2011. This ratio got down as low as about 32, right now at 86. And the reason this ratio compresses in a bull market, as a bull market tends to finish, is because silver, a much smaller, more volatile market than gold, tends to move faster at the end of a bull market upward, and you see this ratio drop. But right now, we're still at very high levels, so I still think silver is a great buy here at the beginning of 2024, the end of 2023, and I do think that this ratio will be headed lower in 2024. Now, let's take a look at the performance of gold and silver both here. This is the one-year chart from Google Finance, and you can see that on a yearly basis, gold had a pretty good year in 2023, up 13.45%. Silver, however, basically flat, down 0.042%, but basically finishing up 2023 right where it started. And again, I would interpret this as a sign that the bull market in the precious metals that we are witnessing is in its very nascent phases. And of course, if you want to zoom out to the 5-year chart, this different performance is a lot less noticeable. Gold up 61%, silver still over the past 5 years up 52.15%. So 2023 was a notable underperformance by silver. I am still primarily focusing on stacking silver because I think that's just an indication of how much cheaper silver is than gold at the moment. And, some people might tell you that history is not going to repeat, silver is going to languish while gold moves up. I don't see any reason to believe that that's the case as we head into this bull market. I think that it's kind of the historical norm that silver lagged gold at the beginning. Of course, both precious metals have been performing pretty well over the past 5 years as a store of value, as the Fed has been printing. Now, when we start talking about the price of silver moving up in a big way in 2024, I know a lot of people watching, are convinced that the silver market is manipulated, that it'll never rise until the manipulation ends in the paper markets. And on that note, I kind of want to talk about a slightly more low probability forecast I have for 2024, and that is that if the Fed begins printing and inflation runs out of control, we see the metals catching a major bid, it may very well be the end of silver manipulation. Now, this story that we're looking at here is one from back in 2022. If you recall, this was when the price of nickel took off following the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Russia makes a lot of nickel. This caused a bit of a short squeeze in the nickel market, and they actually at the LME had to halt markets as the nickel price more than doubled to a record $100,000 per ton. And my forecast is that not necessarily is this going to happen in the silver market, but if we do see big moves in the price of gold or silver, there is a possibility of paper markets breaking and the manipulation ending in 2024. And again, I'm not saying this is necessarily going to happen, but really the takeaway from this, I think, should be that, what happened in the nickel market was that everybody who had long paper contracts on the price of nickel, they got screwed because the LME halted the paper trading. They bailed out their buddy Zhang Guangda, the nickel magnate who had this huge short position in the nickel market. And if we see the manipulation or the paper naked shorting of silver result in a similar situation, I think that it'll play out kind of the same way, and that the folks who are long in the paper market will be penalized if you get a major short squeeze in the precious metals. However, in the case of nickel, it's a little harder to take delivery of your physical metal. But with gold and silver, I think what you might see here is that the folks who are in possession of physical metal and perhaps who own shares in the companies that produce the real physical metal could be the real winners here. And again, this is more of kind of an outlandish, low probability event. But just remember that there was this story from March of 2023. JP Morgan, with its $1.3 million worth of nickel in a warehouse, but it all turned out to be rocks. You might see some similar stories regarding the silver market in 2024. Again, I'm not saying this will happen, but it's something to think about at least. Now, moving from the kind of low probability speculative forecast from 2024, let's talk about something that I think is 100% guaranteed in 2024. We don't get a lot of sure things in this life or in these markets, but one thing that I think is for sure is that this number, the US national debt, is going to continue to expand at a record pace in 2024. And that's going to be hard to do because the debt expanded a lot in 2023. As you can see here, we're just on the cusp of hitting $34 trillion in the US national debt. And I don't know if we're going to do that before 2024. If we don't, we're going to do it right after the beginning. And this number is going to be going a lot higher. One thing you can guarantee in 2024, it's an election year. There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. There's going to be global conflict on the rise. There's going to be division here at home. And they're going to pull out all the stops in 2024, I think, with regards to this election, with regards to propping up the teetering U.S. economy, with regards to assuaging the masses, whatever that means. Could be stimulus checks, it's the bread and circuses, as usual. And all of this stuff costs a lot of money. So whatever you think might happen in 2024, I think that the U.S. national debt is going to continue to balloon. And ultimately, that basically guarantees that the price of gold and silver in the long run is going to be going much higher because, of course, all of this debt can only ever be paid off with devalued currency. So that's it for my 2024 forecasts. And again, this is probably the last video of 2023. So just want to wish all of you a very happy new year. Let me know your forecast for 2024 down in the comments below. Stay safe and happy stacking, and I will catch you next time. Smart Silver Stacker out.